Before we continue, if you enjoy stories like this, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss our next story. And we would really love to hear from you. What do you think our stories still need to become better, more emotional, or more engaging? Please leave your suggestions in the comments below. We read every comment carefully, and we truly take your feedback into consideration as we work to improve each new story. Your support, your ideas, and even your honest criticism help this channel grow. Thank you for being here with us. Now, let us return to the story. Do not sign page 47. Cameron Whitlock spoke so quietly that Travis Calder almost believed he had imagined it. His pen stopped above the signature line as the boardroom fell into a strange stillness. 42 floors below, late November Boston stretched beneath a cold gray sky, the Charles River reflecting the steel-colored morning between rows of brick and glass. Travis had been inside Whitlock Capital for almost 3 hours, listening to attorneys explain how his father's financial decisions had become an $18 million claimed exposure against Calder Architectural Group. Payroll was due Friday. More than 80 employees depended on the firm surviving December. 2 lenders had already refused extensions. Harold Whitlock sat across the polished table with the relaxed posture of a man who believed every possible outcome belonged to him. "The arrangement is straightforward," Harold said. "You marry my son for 2 years. Calder receives immediate financial stability. At the end of the term, the obligation is considered satisfied." Travis looked toward Cameron for the first time since the lawyers had begun reading the final documents. The 25-year-old Omega wore a pale gray jacket over an ivory cashmere sweater. His deep black-brown hair fell naturally toward his brows, framing a lean, balanced face whose blue-gray eyes remained fixed on the contract rather than the people deciding his future. One finger touched the edge of a plain silver ring. Once, twice. Harold had described Cameron before the meeting as autistic, difficult with unexpected changes, overly focused on details, and uncomfortable around strangers. Travis had disliked the description immediately. It sounded less like information about a son and more like instructions for managing an inconvenience. Cameron had barely spoken during the negotiation, yet every time an attorney mentioned a number, his gaze shifted to the exact page containing it. Travis lowered his voice. "What is on page 47? Cameron finally looked at him. His gaze was steady, direct, and far more urgent than his expression. "Third paragraph." Harold's jaw tightened. "Cameron, that provision does not concern you." "It concerns both of us," Cameron replied. Travis turned to page 47. Halfway down, beneath dense language about marital asset coordination, he found a secondary default clause granting Whitlock temporary authority over specified Calder assets. 3 pages later, another provision created a pathway for that authority to become permanent under certain financial conditions. Travis read both sections twice. Cold realization settled in his chest. "This is not debt protection," he said. "This is a takeover mechanism." Harold remained calm. "Your legal team received the documents." Cameron spoke again. "Not this version." Travis looked at him. "How do you know?" "The draft yesterday had 49 pages. This one has 53. The numbering changed after midnight." Silence spread across the table. Harold leaned back. "My son notices details other people know are irrelevant." Travis closed the agreement. "This detail could cost me my company." Cameron's fingers stopped against the silver ring. "That is why I told you." In that moment, Travis understood something he had completely misunderstood when he entered the building. Cameron was not the reward Harold had placed on the other side of the bargain. He was another asset Harold believed he could move wherever he wanted. Travis pushed the contract toward his attorney. "Remove page 47 and every connected provision. Initial every revision. Then I will sign." Harold's expression hardened. "You are not in a position to negotiate." Travis met his eyes. "Then you are not getting the marriage." 4. Several long seconds, nobody moved. Finally, Harold signaled to his counsel. The attorneys began marking the changes. Travis looked at Cameron again. Cameron did not smile. He touched the silver ring twice and gave the smallest nod. It was not gratitude. It was recognition. 2 strangers had entered the room believing they stood on opposite sides of a debt. Before either man signed his name, they discovered they were standing inside the same trap. 3 weeks later, Travis discovered that a room full of smiling people could feel more dangerous than a contract written in small print. The wedding reception filled the grand ballroom of a historic Back Bay hotel with crystal light, expensive perfume, champagne glasses, and hundreds of voices rising beneath enormous chandeliers. The ceremony itself had been brief and carefully controlled, but the celebration afterward seemed determined to turn every private moment into a performance. Travis stood beside Cameron near the center of the ballroom, accepting congratulations from investors, attorneys, relatives, and executives who spoke about the marriage as though two companies had completed a merger. Cameron had been quiet since the photographs began. At first, Travis assumed he was simply exhausted. Then he noticed the details. Cameron's shoulders were held unusually high. His blue-gray eyes no longer followed the people speaking to him. His fingers had stopped touching the silver ring completely and instead remained pressed tightly against his sides. Every camera flash made his expression become more distant. Travis remembered Harold describing his son as difficult around crowds, but there was nothing difficult about what Travis saw. Cameron was trying desperately to remain functional in a room that kept demanding more from him. A photographer approached and lifted his camera. "One more family shot, please." Cameron stepped back. "No more photographs." Harold appeared almost immediately. "5 minutes, Cameron." I said no. His voice was controlled, but softer than usual. Harold lowered his tone. "The board members are still here. Do not create another problem tonight." Another flash went off nearby. Cameron closed his eyes for half a second. Travis moved between him and the photographer. He said no. Harold looked at Travis with quiet irritation. "This is part of the evening." "Not anymore." Cameron suddenly turned and walked toward a service corridor beside the ballroom. Harold exhaled sharply. "Bring him back before people start asking questions." Travis looked at him. "They can ask." Then he followed Cameron. The noise faded as he moved through the hallway. He passed a coat room, a catering station, and 2 closed conference rooms before noticing a pantry door left slightly open. Cameron sat on the floor inside the darkened room, surrounded by shelves of folded linens and unopened bottles of sparkling water. Only a narrow strip of warm hallway light crossed the floor. Travis stopped at the doorway. He did not enter. Cameron kept his gaze lowered. His breathing was uneven, and one hand had finally returned to the silver ring. Once, twice. Travis sat down in the hallway, several feet away. "I am not coming closer unless you want me to." Cameron said nothing. Travis loosened his tie and rested his arms across his knees. "You do not have to go back." Several minutes passed. The music beyond the walls became only a distant vibration. Cameron's breathing slowly became more even. "My father will say I embarrassed him," he finally whispered. "That sounds like something your father can survive." Cameron lifted his eyes. Travis almost smiled but kept his voice quiet. "Do you want me to leave?" Cameron considered the question carefully. "No." "Do you want me to stay here?" Another pause. "Yes." Travis nodded. "Then I am staying." Cameron studied him as though waiting for the hidden condition. None came. After another minute, he shifted slightly against the cabinet. "Even after it is quiet enough?" Travis looked at him. Something in the question felt larger than the room. "If you want me to." Cameron touched the ring twice. "Stay after that too." Travis did not promise anything dramatic. He simply remained where he was. In a hotel filled with people celebrating a marriage neither man had chosen, their first real act of trust happened in a dark pantry where Cameron asked one person to stay. And Travis finally understood that sometimes the most important thing he could do was not take another step. The morning after the wedding, Cameron placed a single sheet of cream-colored paper beside Travis's coffee and said, "These are the rules." Travis looked down at the page. 7 rules for living with me was written across the top in Cameron's precise handwriting. Outside the tall windows of the house near the Charles River, Boston rested beneath a pale winter sky, with thin snow gathered along the stone terrace and bare branches moving in the wind. Cameron sat across from him in an ivory cashmere sweater, both hands wrapped around a cup of white tea. Travis read the first line. "Do not touch me without warning unless there is an emergency." The second asked that changes to plans be communicated as early as possible. The third required 2 knocks before entering Cameron's private rooms. The fourth prohibited strong fragrances inside the house. The fifth requested that disagreements remain quiet. Travis paused at the sixth rule. Do not explain me to other people when I am standing there. He looked up. Does that happen often? Cameron's gaze stayed on his tea. People ask me questions and then answer for me. My father tells them what I mean before I finish speaking. Sometimes he tells me what I feel. Something tightened in Travis's jaw. I will not do that. Cameron studied him carefully. You answered quickly. Because that one is simple. It is not simple for most people. Travis returned to the paper. The seventh rule contained only 4 words. If unsure, ask me. That might be the most useful rule here, Travis said. Cameron's mouth shifted by the smallest degree. Yes. Over the following days, Travis discovered the list did not make life difficult. It made life predictable. Before a dinner with Calder executives, he gave Cameron the names of everyone attending, the restaurant address, the reservation time, and how long he expected them to stay. When a contractor needed access to the house, Travis mentioned it a day beforehand. After noticing Cameron open a window whenever Travis wore his cedar-heavy cologne, Travis stopped using it. He never announced the change. Cameron noticed anyway. Every morning, Travis knocked twice before entering the shared study. Every evening, he told Cameron when he expected to return from the office. Gradually, Cameron changed small things too. He stopped closing the piano room door whenever Travis walked past. He corrected Travis when he misquoted figures from a financial report. He began leaving sheet music scattered across the piano instead of putting it away when someone entered. One Thursday evening, Travis arrived home 26 minutes later than planned after a meeting downtown. Cameron was waiting in the library. You are late, he said. Travis checked the clock. You are right. I should have called. Cameron blinked. You are not going to tell me 26 minutes does not matter? It mattered enough that you were expecting me. Cameron's fingers moved to the silver ring. Once. Twice. Most people say I noticed the wrong things. Travis removed his coat and placed it over the back of a chair. Maybe they are paying attention to the wrong things. Cameron looked at him for several quiet seconds, then walked toward the piano room. At the doorway, he stopped and glanced back. You can listen if you want. Travis remained where he was. From here, Cameron considered the question. From the chair by the window. Travis entered only after Cameron stepped aside. He sat exactly where Cameron had indicated and stayed silent as the first notes filled the room. Outside, winter pressed against the glass. Inside, something neither contract nor ceremony could create was beginning to form, one boundary respected at a time. By Christmas week, Travis had learned that Cameron could recognize his mood before Travis said a single word. It happened on a cold Tuesday evening after Travis returned from a difficult meeting at Calder Architectural Group nearly an hour earlier than expected. He entered the house quietly, removed his charcoal wool coat, and placed his keys on the entry table. From the piano room, the music stopped in the middle of a measure. The meeting went badly, Cameron said. Travis looked toward the open doorway. Cameron sat at the piano end. A pale blue cashmere sweater, warm amber light softening the sharp winter shadows across his face. How did you know? Travis asked. Cameron turned slightly on the bench. Your keys. Travis glanced toward the table. My keys told you. You usually place them down carefully. When you are frustrated, you release them about 2 inches above the surface. Travis stared at him for a moment, then gave a quiet laugh. Cameron's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Travis noticed. I am not laughing at you. Cameron waited. I am impressed. The tension around his eyes eased. People often think I do not notice them because I do not always look at them while they speak. They are wrong. Cameron's gaze settled on him. Yes. Travis loosened his tie and started toward the library. I should review the financing proposal before tomorrow. Cameron looked back at the piano keys. Do you want to? Travis stopped. No one had asked him that all day. His employees wanted reassurance. His attorneys wanted decisions. His lenders wanted numbers. Every conversation had required something from him. Not particularly, he admitted. Cameron shifted slightly on the bench. You can sit here. Travis looked toward the chair by the window. It had already been pulled closer to the piano. Are you sure? If I were not sure, I would not have moved the chair. Travis crossed the room and sat down. Cameron did not ask what happened in the meeting. He did not offer solutions or tell Travis everything would work out. He simply placed his hands on the keys and began to play. The melody was slow and restrained, softer than the pieces Travis had heard before. Outside, snow drifted beyond the tall windows toward the dark Charles River. Inside, The piano filled the room without demanding anything from him. Gradually, Travis felt the tension leave his shoulders. Cameron noticed. Of course he did. When the final note faded, Travis remained still for several seconds. That helped, he said. Cameron kept his fingers resting lightly on the keys. You make the house quieter for me. He looked at Travis. I thought I could make something quieter for you. The words landed with more weight than Travis expected. For weeks, he had believed he was learning Cameron, learning when to speak, when to wait, when to ask instead of assume. He had never considered that Cameron had been learning him too. Thank you, Travis said softly. Cameron nodded and reached toward the sheet music beside him. I wrote that yesterday. Travis looked at the pages. Does it have a name? Cameron hesitated, his thumb brushing the edge of the silver ring. Not yet. Then I will wait until you decide. Cameron's eyes softened. You are becoming good at waiting. The next morning, Travis found black coffee beside his laptop exactly the way he preferred it. Next to the cup was a small handwritten note. Meeting at 10. Eat before you leave. Travis read it twice. The marriage had begun with lawyers measuring what each family owed. Somewhere between 2 knocks on a door, a chair beside a piano, and a cup of coffee prepared without being requested, they had started measuring something else. The first real crack in Harold Whitlock's story appeared on the second Sunday of January, when Cameron placed 3 folders beside Travis's coffee and said, "The $18 million was manufactured." Travis looked up from his laptop. Snow covered the terrace outside the windows, and the Charles River beyond the house had turned the same muted gray as the winter sky. Cameron stood across the kitchen island in a muted sage sweater, his expression calm but unusually focused. Manufactured how? Travis asked. Cameron opened the first folder. Your father's original debt was $5.8 million. Travis knew that number. What he had never understood was how it had become nearly $18 million in claimed exposure within 3 years. Cameron arranged several documents in a straight line. Whitlock Capital purchased the primary loan. After that, portions of the debt moved through Greyhaven Holdings, Mercer North, and Beacon Strategic Partners. Every transfer added refinancing costs, penalties, guarantees, or new conditions. Travis scanned the pages. Those companies could be independent investors. Cameron opened the second folder. They are not. He pointed to the incorporation records. Different officers, different addresses, different banks. The same accounting firm prepared every filing, and the filing fees came from the same Whitlock Capital operating account. Travis recognized the firm immediately. Cameron continued before he could speak. Within 90 days of each transfer, control moved through entities connected to my father's private investment office. The room seemed to grow colder. Travis studied the numbers again. His father had made reckless decisions, but this pattern suggested someone had made recovery deliberately difficult. Why, he asked. Cameron opened the third folder. Inside was a map showing 6 waterfront redevelopment parcels controlled by Calder Architectural Group. My father has tried to acquire these development rights for years. Travis stared at the blue markings. He wanted the company. Part of it. Cameron placed another document beside the map. I turned 26 in March. That is when I received direct voting authority over the Whitlock shares held for me. Travis remembered page 47 immediately. The clause you warned me about. Cameron nodded. The original plan was stronger before you forced them to remove it. That clause would have created a direct path from a secondary Calder default to temporary control of company assets. But we removed it. Yes. Cameron touched the edge of his silver ring once, then twice. Which means you disrupted part of the plan before we were even married. But other financial connections remained. My father still expected the marriage to give him leverage over both families before my birthday. Travis looked from the documents to Cameron. For weeks, he had believed Harold had offered marriage as payment for an existing disaster. Now he saw something more deliberate. The debt had been pushed toward collapse. The marriage had been designed as a bridge, and Cameron had been placed in the middle of it just as surely as Travis had. How long have you been tracking these companies? Travis asked. For years. Why? Cameron looked down at the folders. Because my father kept telling me the numbers were irrelevant. His blue-gray eyes lifted again. People usually call something irrelevant when they want me to stop looking at it. Travis closed the final folder carefully. Does Harold know you have copies? No. Then he cannot know now. Cameron studied him. What are you suggesting? Travis leaned against the island. We give him exactly what he expects to see. Two reluctant husbands following the agreement. No accusations. No sudden questions. Cameron understood immediately. While we find the rest. Travis nodded. Together, Cameron's fingers stopped against the ring. You believe me? The question was quiet enough that Travis almost missed the weight behind it. He answered without hesitation. Yes. Cameron held his gaze for several seconds before giving a small nod. Nothing about the room changed, yet Travis felt the relationship between them shift. They had entered the marriage as two people trapped by the same bargain. Now, for the first time, they were choosing to stand on the same side. Harold waited until the first week of February to test the alliance he did not know they had built. Travis was alone in his office at Calder Architectural Group when an audio file arrived from an unknown number. There was no message, only a date from several months before the marriage. He pressed play. Cameron's voice filled the quiet room. Calder will never recover once the debt is transferred. My father knows that. The marriage only makes the process easier. By the time Travis understands what happened, the company will already belong to us. The recording ended after 23 seconds. Travis stared at his phone. He played it again, listening for anything unnatural. The careful pronunciation sounded like Cameron. The pauses sounded like Cameron. Even the measured rhythm was familiar. Travis wanted to dismiss it immediately, but one thought refused to disappear. Cameron had been tracking Harold's transactions for 4 years. He had known Calder was connected to several transfers before showing Travis the folders. What if there was something else he had withheld? By the time Travis reached the house beside the Charles River, evening snow had begun collecting along the terrace. Cameron was in the library, with financial records arranged across the table. He looked up. You are early. Travis removed his coat. I received something today. Cameron's attention sharpened as Travis placed the phone on the table and played the recording. Cameron listened without interruption. When it ended, his fingers moved toward the silver ring. Once. Twice. Where did you get that? He asked. Unknown number. Cameron looked directly at him. Do you believe it? 2 weeks earlier, Travis had answered that question without hesitation. This time, silence lasted barely a second. It was still too long. Cameron's hand stopped moving. I need to know how much you understood before the marriage, Travis said carefully. Cameron's expression remained composed. That was not my question. I am trying to verify what happened. After deciding there might be something I need to defend. Travis stepped closer, then remembered the distance Cameron preferred when tense, and stopped several feet away. You knew Calder appeared in the transfers before you showed me the full pattern. I knew the name appeared. I did not know what my father intended until I connected it to the marriage documents. Why did you not tell me earlier? Cameron looked down at the folders. Because I tell people what I can prove. His voice stayed quiet. You know that. Travis rubbed one hand across his jaw. The recording sounds real. Cameron lifted his eyes. So do I. The words left Travis with nothing useful to say. Cameron gathered the papers into a precise stack. You learn when to knock. You learn which lights bother me. You learned when not to touch me and how much notice I need when plans change. His fingers tightened around the folders. I thought you had learned me. Travis felt the mistake settle heavily between them. Cameron, I am sorry. Cameron nodded once. I know. That answer hurt more than anger would have. Travis looked toward the piano room across the hall. Its door was closed. It had not been closed in weeks. I am going to find the original recording, he said. Cameron did not ask him to stay. Travis reached the entryway, then looked back. Cameron remained beside the library table beneath. The warm amber light, quiet and controlled. Harold had not touched the debt, the company, or the trust. He had only placed 23 seconds of doubt between them. And for 1 second, Travis had allowed it to become stronger than months of trust. 48 hours later, Travis found the 47 seconds Harold had removed. The breakthrough did not come from luck. After Travis's attorney requested a formal review of the anonymous recording, an independent compliance officer at Whitlock Capital located the original audio inside an archived internal investigation and forwarded it to outside counsel. Travis listened alone in a conference room. Cameron's voice began exactly as it had in the edited file. Calder will never recover once the debt is transferred. My father knows that. The marriage only makes the process easier. Then came the missing words. That is why I will not help you do this. Travis does not understand what you are planning, and by the time he does, The company could already belong to you. Harold's voice followed. You are confusing morality with business. Cameron answered without hesitation. No, I am recognizing coercion when I see it. Travis closed his eyes. 23 seconds had made Cameron sound like an accomplice. 47 more revealed that he had been trying to stop Harold before Travis ever entered that boardroom. The realization did not make Travis feel relieved. It made him ashamed. He had learned Cameron's routines, remembered his tea, lowered lights, knocked twice, and asked before stepping closer. Yet when something challenged Cameron's character, Travis had trusted a recording designed by a manipulator before trusting the man he had lived beside for months. His attorney interrupted the silence with another problem. Harold had scheduled a special board meeting for Friday afternoon. Cameron would turn 26 in March, when direct voting authority over the Whitlock shares held for him was scheduled to transfer into his control. Harold was pushing an emergency proxy arrangement that would preserve his influence beyond Cameron's birthday. Travis understood immediately. Harold was running out of time. On Friday, the top-floor boardroom at Whitlock Capital was filled with directors, outside counsel, and members of the audit committee. Cameron sat near the end of the polished table in a pale gray suit, his posture still beneath the cold overhead lights. Harold stood beside a presentation screen. My son has exceptional memory, he said. But recognizing patterns is not the same as managing complex corporate responsibilities. Cameron's fingers touched his silver ring once, then twice. Travis entered before Harold could continue. Every face turned toward him. Cameron looked up, but his expression remained guarded. Travis did not blame him. His attorney placed the complete recording transcript and supporting financial records before independent counsel. Harold's jaw tightened. This is a family matter. You made it a corporate matter when company accounts became part of it, Travis replied. One director opened the documents. Mr. Calder, can you explain how Greyhaven, Mercer North, and Beacon Strategic Partners connect to these transactions? Travis knew the answer. 2 months earlier, he would have given it. Instead, he looked toward Cameron. Why are you asking me? The director paused. Travis stepped away from the table. Ask Cameron. Silence settled over the room. Cameron looked at Travis for several seconds. Travis offered no nod, no instruction, no attempt to reassure him. He simply left the space open. Cameron stood. Greyhaven Holdings was incorporated on April 7th. Mercer North followed 17 days later. Beacon Strategic Partners was established in June. He opened a folder. Different officers. Different addresses. The same Whitlock Capital operating account funded the filings. One document after another appeared on the screen. Cameron explained the transfers, refinancing costs, debt inflation, waterfront interests, and proxy structure with calm precision. Complexity disappeared beneath the order of his evidence. When he finished, the room remained silent for several seconds. Then the audit committee requested an independent investigation. Outside counsel recommended suspending Harold's authority over the disputed transactions. 2 directors withdrew. Support for the proxy agreement. Harold looked toward Cameron as control quietly moved beyond his reach. Cameron closed the folder. You always said I focused on details that did not matter. His blue-gray eyes remained steady. They mattered. Then he looked at Travis. Travis had returned with proof, but he finally understood what Cameron had needed from him all along. Not a rescuer, not a spokesman, just someone willing to stop talking long enough for the room to hear him. By the time the board meeting ended, the hallway outside the conference room had filled with attorneys, directors, and quiet conversations that seemed to overlap from every direction. Cameron answered 2 questions, then stopped. Travis noticed his fingers press against the silver ring and remain there. The overhead lights were too bright. Too many voices were competing for his attention. Without explaining, Cameron turned and walked toward the private piano room at the end of the executive floor. Travis waited several seconds before following. When he reached the closed door, he raised his hand and knocked twice. There was a pause before Cameron said, "Come in." Travis opened the door and found him standing beside the black grand piano beneath a single amber lamp. Cameron had removed his pale gray jacket and folded it neatly across the bench. The rest of the room was dim and quiet. Travis stayed near the doorway. "May I stay?" Cameron nodded. Travis closed the door gently, shutting out the conversations beyond it. For several moments, neither man spoke. Then Travis said, I heard the complete recording. Cameron looked down at the piano keys. I know. You were trying to stop him before we ever met. Yes. Travis swallowed. And when someone gave me 23 seconds designed to make you look guilty, I still hesitated. Cameron touched the edge of his ring once, then twice. Yes. Travis did not defend himself. I was wrong. Cameron finally looked at him. Most people apologize and then explain why their mistake was reasonable. I do not have an explanation that makes mine better. The silence between them softened slightly. Travis continued. You warned me on the first day when helping me gave you nothing. You showed me the truth when it could have made your own life harder. I knew how carefully you choose your words, and I still let someone else define what they meant. Cameron's gaze remained steady. Trust does not mean believing someone will never make a mistake. Travis waited. What does it mean? It means knowing what they do after the mistake. Travis breathed out slowly. Then I want to start there. Cameron looked toward the dark window. When a room becomes too loud, I find somewhere quiet. He paused. When people become unpredictable, I look for something predictable. His eyes returned to Travis. Lately, I look for you. Travis felt the words settle deep inside him. He did not move closer. Can I hold you? Cameron remained still for several seconds. Then he crossed the room himself. Travis opened his arms only when Cameron stepped into them. Cameron rested his forehead against Travis's shoulder, his hands settling carefully against the back of Travis's charcoal coat. Travis held him gently, leaving Cameron free to choose the distance. You make things quieter, Cameron whispered. Travis closed his eyes. You make me notice what matters. Cameron slowly leaned back, but he did not step away. Their faces were only inches apart. Travis lifted one hand, then stopped before touching Cameron's cheek. May I kiss you? Cameron's mouth shifted into the faintest smile. You asked too many questions. Travis immediately lowered his hand. Cameron's smile deepened. That is why the answer is yes. Travis leaned forward slowly. Cameron closed the remaining distance himself. Their kiss was brief, gentle, and unhurried, carrying none of the obligation that had defined the beginning of their marriage. When they separated, Cameron rested his forehead against Travis's. Outside the room, lawyers were still deciding what would happen to companies, trusts, and contracts. Inside, Cameron had already made one choice no one else had made for him. By the final week of March, the contracts that had once controlled both of their lives had begun to lose their power. The independent investigation confirmed that Harold Whitlock had used connected investment entities to inflate Calder Architectural Group's financial exposure while attempting to preserve influence over the Whitlock shares held for Cameron. The disputed penalties were removed, the legitimate Calder debt was placed under a conventional repayment plan, and the company remained fully independent. Harold stepped away from active management while outside counsel and the audit committee completed their review. On Cameron's 26th birthday, direct voting authority over his shares finally transferred to him. There was no ballroom, no photographer, and no corporate announcement. Cameron celebrated at home with white tea, a small lemon cake, and one candle because, as he explained, 26 candles would serve no practical purpose. Travis smiled and accepted the logic. That afternoon, he placed a folder beside Cameron's cup at the kitchen table. Cameron opened it and read every page before looking up. This releases every financial obligation connected to our marriage agreement. Yes, Travis said. The debt no longer depends on this marriage. Your shares are yours. Calder is mine. No one gets to use us as leverage again. Cameron studied him. Why did you sign it first? Travis rested his hands on the table. Because I want you to stay, and I needed to make sure staying was actually a choice. Cameron became very still. Do you want me to leave? No. Travis answered immediately. I want you here more than I know how to explain. But wanting something from you does not give me the right to make leaving harder. Cameron looked down at the signature page, then signed beneath Travis's name. For one painful second, Travis wondered whether freedom would be the thing that finally separated them. Cameron closed the folder. Good. Then he stood and walked toward the piano room. Travis remained seated until Cameron stopped at the doorway and looked back. You were supposed to follow me. Travis almost laughed. That was not one of the 7 rules. It is new. Travis followed him, but when he reached the doorway, he still knocked twice. Cameron's mouth softened. Come in. Warm spring sunlight filled the room. On top of the piano rested Cameron's silver ring beside a small black box. Cameron opened it. Inside was a simple platinum band. The first marriage was designed by people who wanted something from us, he said. Money, control, access. His fingers touched the silver ring once, then twice. I do not want their version anymore. Travis barely breathed. Cameron looked directly into his dark hazel eyes. The contract made you my husband. It never made you the person I trusted. He reached for Travis's hand. You did that yourself. Travis stepped closer but stopped before entering Cameron's space completely. Are you asking me to stay married to you because you want to? Cameron gave him a patient look. Rule 7. Travis smiled. If unsure, ask. Exactly. Cameron placed the platinum band in his palm. Yes, Travis. I choose you. 6 weeks later, they renewed their vows in a small garden beside the Charles River. Fewer than 20 guests attended. There were no camera flashes, no corporate speeches, and no schedule Cameron had not approved himself. Travis wore midnight navy. Cameron wore ivory. Soft May sunlight moved through muted sage leaves above them as they exchanged promises that contained no debt, no deadline, and no obligation. When the vows were finished, Travis leaned slightly closer. May I kiss you? Cameron smiled. You still ask too many questions. Should I stop? Cameron tightened his fingers gently around Travis's hand. Never. Then Cameron closed the distance himself and kissed him softly. The debt had forced them into the same house. Trust was what turned it into a home.